Vengeance. I am the Knight. I am Nick from the Nerd Frenzy Podcast. And today we're talking about the Batman. We have the wonderful pleasure to talk to my nephew, the sexy, the Tasen Collard, everyone.
Hey guys, how's it going? Thank you much for having me on again. It's been a fun ride.
Well, you always, we did the one with the amazing documentaries from Michael Jordan, and we did that hilarious little opening thing where you couldn't make a shot, and it was hilarious, and
That was fun for Gordon.
I had a fun time doing it too, and I'm glad we get to do another one, my friend.
Yeah.
So, you, I've been kind of going a little circle, just asking, who's up next in the little list, and you told me like, hey, I want to do the Batman, and I didn't see it at that point yet, so I was like, oh, okay, well, so I had to figure this out. So I finally watched it, and I haven't told you if I liked it or didn't like it, but I wanted to talk to you about the movie, the experience, the goods, the bads, and everything, Tayson. And thanks again for coming on the show, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nick. I'm very excited to, talk about Batman. It's a cool little movie they have, not trilogy, a movie they have, and yeah, I'm excited to see what you think of it.
And a cool, awesome thing for you too, Tayson. They are going to make a trilogy out of it. Matt Reeves has already said that he's kind of got this little thing ready to go, and so that is in the works. And I'm guessing from the positive reinforcement from the audience, it's the trilogy is going to be happening. And I really like the movie.
Yeah.
I really like the movie. How I felt about it is there were a couple things about it that I didn't love. I will still say that I think that the Christopher Nolan trilogy is, damn near perfect movies, especially with the Dark Knight being the second one. That's the best standalone Batman film, and just possibly the best film of all time. But this movie does a lot of things that movie did not do correctly, and one of them was have this really good detective story and having Batman play the detective. What'd you think about that, bud?
I thought it was interesting because, like, the role between, I felt like Batman and Bruce Wayne himself didn't really switch that much. Um, So I was kind of hoping there would have been like a darker, like a dark side, like what Batman is, and then like a more like loose side, to the detective side.
I get what you're saying. You said that the Batman didn't really he didn't really change too much from Bruce Wayne to Batman. He was kind of just this brooding, kind of pissy kind of character. Is what I've been
Hmm.
pretty much hearing from you, and
Yeah.
I do agree. The thing that I do like about that though
Hmm.
is this is his second year being Batman. He's a young man. He is throughout the movie screwing up the whole time, making possibly bad decisions. So he's not yet the Batman that we all know him from. So that's one thing that I really liked about it. He was screwing up. That's what Casino Royale did what James Bond did when they brought Daniel Craig as James Bond. There'd be times whenever he'd be chasing the bad guy, and instead of catching him like they
Uh-huh.
always do, he would fall and not be able to make the jump that the bad guy would do. And that was a
Hmm.
nice, refreshing change. And this movie did that too, where it had this concept of I am not very good at my job yet.
Hmm. Yeah, I thought it was I thought that kind of what made the movie, like him messing up. I thought that was really cool, and the way they did it too was very unique, and we haven't seen it in a lot of movies before.
Mm.
So yeah.
There was something I want to touch with you with that too. I do feel a lot of people are going to probably think, oh, well, Robert Pattinson didn't really have much to do with both Batman and Bruce Wayne. What I think that
Uh-huh.
they were establishing, because he was kind of had that little monologue at the end of the movie. He's pretty much realizing I have to start being this Batman, and I
Yeah,
think eventually he's gonna start playing that whole like playboy Bruce Wayne where he's walking around spending all his money on dumb things, and it's gonna be
yeah,
his secret identity is that. He just hasn't got to that point yet. I think he's still just pissed off about his mom and
yeah,
dad, and there's a lot of things going on, and I think by the end of this movie he's gonna start realizing that he needs to kind of chill out a little bit because you're absolutely right. The way he treats everyone in the movie is kind of not, I wouldn't say garbage, but he kind of has this whole like, well, whatever. If you get hurt in the process, I mean, if you're a bad guy, then I
yeah.
don't really care.
Yeah,
The what you said about the crooked cops or crooked mayor to Lieutenant Gordon, you tell Lieutenant Gordon was like, hey, you act like you don't care about these people, and Batman was like, well,
yeah,
if they're crooked, then pretty much
yeah,
implying I don't care,
yeah.
and even though and I liked what they were going with that, and the biggest thing, Tayson, I think the biggest takeaway I got from this movie that I can always appreciate is I don't know if you've seen it yet, but there's a wonderful movie called Seven by David Fincher,
Mm-mm.
and there's another movie that's even probably more into the idea of this called the Zodiac, which
Hmm.
I'm sure you've heard of the Zodiac Killer. He was
Yeah.
a real person. I believe it was in the 60s and maybe the 70s, not sure, but he was never caught. But he would do
Mm-hmm.
these things that the Riddler kind of did. And he would send these cryptic messages to to the cops and whatnot and try to like give them these like really cryptic
Yeah.
answers and whatnot. So the idea that this movie's based off somewhat of a real life situations that happened not too
Hmm.
long ago, and they're kind of put into this realistic manner. I sometimes am tired of. I'm sorry. I'm refreshed whenever a movie can say, "Hey," a superhero movie can say, "Hey, let's still stay grounded and have realistic undertones." And
Yeah.
this movie shows a lot of pretty much just Batman screwing up and a lot of disturbing crime solving. I love it.
Yeah. I thought the actor played amazing. Like,
Paul Dano, he's awesome.
yeah. It was probably one of the best villains I've ever seen. Maybe not ever seen, but um, the way he like I don't know treated Batman as like his own game really was just I thought it was really fun.
And I've seen Paul Dano. He's been in some other really great movies that I don't think people give him enough credit for. Little Miss Sunshine, he was fantastic in it, and There Will Be Blood with maybe the
Mhm.
best, arguably the best actor of all time, Daniel Day Lewis. And there's scenes whenever they're going back and forth, and Paul Dano is so convincing. And I guarantee you, the reason why the director Matt Reeves probably picked him was because of performances like this. Paul Dano is an excellent actor, good and evil, scary, nerdy. He can pretty much do it all. I've seen probably 40 movies of his, and 30 of them he completely changes certain mannerisms, and I love that. So when I found out he was playing the Riddler, I had no issue whatsoever with that. Now, I did have an issue somewhat with the idea that they picked Colin Farrell to play the Penguin until I saw it, and then I thought you did a damn good
Yeah.
job.
Yeah, the pink one was a very unexpected role. You would think he's kind of like a more bad guy-ish, but his character was really interesting. They're in the club and he's having a conversation with Bruce Wayne, and I just thought that was really cool, the interaction with him.
Hmm.
And then Penguin, just it was a very unexpected character in my part.
Well, and the cool thing about this too, Tayson, is a lot of these characters, like the Penguin, he has not been the main like bad dog on the corner. He is second in
Hmm.
command under
Yeah.
Falcone. So the moment Falcone is taken at the end of the movie, you see the Penguin at the you stand there looking at all the flood and everything, and you see him like he's kind of has this like smirk, like, all right, here comes my time. And if you know anything
Hmm.
about the comics or about anything about the Penguin, you know that he is a big crime lord, and he's in himself like a villain. So I think
Yeah.
that the reason why he was kind of a little bit more charming and a little bit more like, hey, what's the problem here? Is I don't think he was because he was the big boss yet, but I think once he gets to the boss, he'll probably have a specific like. In fact, they're actually doing a HBO Max TV show, and the Penguin is going to be the main character.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's they're doing that thing where they're
Oh, really?
continuing. Yeah,
Okay.
so and I guess the Joker that we saw in the movie will also be in there too.
Oh, really? That's gonna be interesting.
Yes,
Wow,
sir.
I did not know that.
Yes, sir. So they're like I said, they're setting up this whole thing. Matt Reeves has this whole idea with planned with HBO and DC, and after seeing the first movie, I am completely sold, and I'm now curious on how the second one's going to look and feel. I'm excited that they chose a Batman that pretty much, he was not 100% solving the riddles. Like whenever the whole misspelling of the rat with wings thing, but it was misspelled.
Yeah.
They were like getting all hung up on that. I love that concept because at the end of the day, Batman's not perfect. No one's perfect. I mean, they screwed up a couple times and people got hurt because of it. Guess what? At the end of the movie, the Riddler technically wins. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
destroyed
Yeah.
all of Gotham
Yeah.
City. And by the way, Tayson, how amazing did the actual city of Gotham look?
I was just gonna bring that up. It looked fantastic. It looked like it was just so good. It looked perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's very beautiful.
And the cool thing about Gotham is I've read a lot of the Batman comic books. I've watched all these movies many times over. Batman to many is the best superhero character of all time. I think the only people would typically say it's either Batman or Spider Man is usually so. It's that would be like the back and forth. But in my opinion, I don't think Superman should be up there. He's cool, but he's not as cool as Batman. But
Yeah.
but one thing that all Batman movies have not done correctly is have a good mystery. They have a good like who did it, what's happening. Is more just kind of put out there, and then we get great characters. For example, the Nolan movies, the Joker and Bane and Scarecrow and Ra's al Ghul, all these characters were so thought out. But I think what I liked about this version, and I wouldn't say better, but I would say just in a different kind of way, was the concept that there's this maniac who is trying to do what he thinks is right, like Vigilante, the Riddler, and his way is by setting up these little riddles to pretty much take everyone down responsible for the corruption of the city. And I liked how, as a villain, the villain should never. If you ever make a villain that goes, "Hey, I'm the bad guy and I'm here to just kill everyone and take all your money," I don't care. What I care about is a villain who goes, "Hey, I'm
Yeah.
here to help you. I'm here to fix the situation, and this is what it is. So, yes, you may think this is a weird thing I'm doing, but I'm trying to do this because I'm trying to fix a wrong, and that's we all kind of understand that, and so there's a part of us that are like, oh, Riddler, I get you, but then you kind of just find out a little bit more about him, and you find out that he's just like Bruce Wayne in a lot of ways, and he thought he was being a superhero, and it's kind of sad in a sad, I mean, in a sad way. Even though Christopher Nolan's movies, they kind of rely on the idea of the gadgets and whatnot. But this is the second year Batman. This is you could tell
Yeah.
by looking at all of his gadgets, like his chest piece and everything that he uses like as like a little batarang. These are all things that are not like that awesome. You tell that things that
Yeah.
he
I
made
know.
in his garage, like in his thing, and you tell that him and Alfred were just doing that together, and Alfred just
Mhm.
taught him how to fight, and all these things were kind of going on. It was very very raw, very just like, hey, we have a lot of money, but we have to be very, let's just do it here, and it wasn't this. Even though I think that the story of how in the Dark Knight trilogy, how Batman goes and gets trained by Ra's al Ghul and the League of
Mhm.
Shadows. I love that. I also think that this was pretty awesome just because the idea of just the realism of it. They're like, oh
Yeah.
well, Batman, the billionaire guy in the whole world, he can't just be flying around and stuff. We have to be hush hush, and you don't even know what to do yet, and we're just trying to figure out what Batman is. And I thought that that was a cool way of opening. And I'm hoping
Yeah,
the second movie might be one of those 5 years later thing where he's definitely got a better handle on things. He's being a little bit more friendly, I guess, whenever he's being Bruce
yeah,
Wayne. And that's I think that's the biggest takeaway. If he keeps on remaining like brooding and like like
yeah,
have that whole like screw you Alfred kind of thing, because I didn't like how he treated Alfred. I thought that that was lame, and
yeah.
because Alfred's pretty
But,
much his
uh,
second father too.
yeah, the connection between Alfred and Batman was there. Batman was kind of a jerk to him, but I felt like this movie kind of reminded me of an old like film, kind of just the way it was like mystery and like yeah, like you said, the gadgets on Batman weren't like it was like an old Batman. The car, Catwoman suit, it was just it was a really cool film to watch.
Speaking of Catwoman's, what do you think?
I thought it was pretty cool that the character, play it kind of self-explanatory. Catwoman just played she played Catwoman like pretty well. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, I thought it was good. I don't really know much about Catwoman per se. I know that
Hmm.
pretty much she goes typically either as the villain or the hero.
Yeah.
And these days, I have one thing that I'm not necessarily a fan of. I was at first, but I'm not necessarily a fan of them turning every single villain into a anti-hero. Like they're doing that with the new Morbius movie coming out here soon. It just came out actually, uh,
Hmm.
and I'm kind of getting tired of like, oh, the bad guy is now the good guy. I would prefer if they didn't do it as much, but uh, it's hard to explain, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah.
I also like the fact that the car was like like a souped up sports car, like a muscle car, and it was just kind of rigged to be like better. And
Yeah.
it wasn't like the typical like Batmobile, and I'm sure eventually it will be like that. Like I said,
Yeah.
like everyone now knows Batman, and I'm sure eventually he'll just kind of like, okay, well everyone knows here I come. I'm just gonna make a really like a lot. Eventually, he's gonna have a lot more protection and whatnot for his stuff.
Yeah.
He's gonna have flying uh, hel- uh, jets fly towards him and drop
Yeah.
off his packages. That would eventually be. But for now, the idea that he's fresh. And one other thing that I think that they've done the best job in this movie, better than any other Batman movie, is they had that they made you feel that distrust and that kind of just pissed offness that the cops had for Batman. They kept on just like,
Mhm.
"Are you kidding me,
Yeah.
Lieutenant? You gonna let this asshole in here?" And you could tell they were frustrated. Like, can you, I mean, this guy's a vigilante, sir. I mean, this is the kind of guy that
Hmm.
we don't we arrest these people. We are the cops. We are, and he's just like, hey, I mean, he's helping. Yeah,
Hmm.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Back to that Batmobile part. Yeah, I'm excited to see where they take it in the future. From hate to do this, but Avengers, Age of Ultron to what was it? Infinity War. That the suit from Iron Man and was just it was really cool, and I'm excited. Hopefully they do that with Batman, but not too much.
Yeah, because there's one thing that happened. I remember watching the original Batman with Michael Keaton, the first movie, and the Batman suit looked great, and then the Val Kilmer one, it looked great too, and then
Hmm.
George Clooney came, and it had like this like
Hmm.
silver and stuff, and it was cool. Don't get me wrong, but it was very like "Here, I'm here.
Yeah.
It had nipples on it, and it kind of changed things for, and it's like why would a bat suit need nipples on it? It was very odd, but
Yeah.
there's certain choices, and luckily for the most part, the the bat suits have looked great pretty much every single
Hmm.
time ever. I've never had an issue with the bat suits. There's been certain issues like I have like with the other costumes for villains, but
Hmm.
not pretty much not in the last 5 movies. Pretty much only like Batman and Robin and Batman Forever. I could only talk some real issues about that, but yeah, this movie. Uh, I guess it brings the A game for just saying, hey, we're gonna be the grittiest Batman movie out there.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Batman's character definitely played the brute. It's Batman, so he's not gonna. It's. I mean, he's not. killing people, but he's still the bully in this movie. Just like any other movies, but yeah, um, definitely the brute. So yeah.
There's when I think of a brute, I think of Bane. I thought that Bane
Mhm.
in Dark Knight Rises was the best brute you could possibly do. So I'm kind of waiting for that. I'm curious on where they're going to go from that. But I mean, who would you say would be considered like the brute character that Batman had to fight?
Probably Bane, definitely.
I'm talking about in
But
the Batman movie, the
oh,
new
the new
Batman movie.
one. Uh, I don't know really. Probably the Penguin, if that really counts. But
Well, they never really got in a fight though, did they?
yeah, the car scene when they're like getting chased and stuff.
Which that was a pretty cool scene. Whenever
Mm.
the penguin's hanging upside down, he sees the Batman,
Yeah,
and then you hear the boom, boom, boom. Yeah, it's just
yeah,
awesome. Yeah, I loved
yeah.
it. It was if I had to rank it. No, so this is where it kind of gets tough for me, Tayson, because
Mhm.
even though I know it's not near the quality as the Christopher Nolan movies, the original
Yeah.
1989 Michael Keaton's Batman, I still like it has a special place in my heart. But it's not the best Batman movie. The best Batman movie
Mm.
is The Dark Knight and the Dark Knight trilogy. But I would say this
Mhm.
one will be definitely right below it.
Yeah.
They're like Batman Begins is a 9, Dark Knight 10, Dark Knight Rises 10, and I would say the Batman's probably an 8.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely see. I don't really think, like you said, it's better than Dark Knight at all. It's just kind of, the, what do you call it? The middle parts or yeah, the middle part was kind of boring. Just, it's them pretty much just trying to figure out what's going on in a boring way. If that makes sense.
No, I didn't find like the I found the pacing to be fine. I think it
Hmm.
was with 2 hours and 55 minutes, and I am always fine with that as long as I'm being entertained, as long as there's not really
Hmm.
fillers. It seemed to me, at least in my subjective opinion, that every single thing that was placed in the movie needed to be there for you to kind of
Hmm.
get more because there was clues
Yeah.
put out throughout the whole movie, and I like how
Hmm.
movies can kind of give certain things away if you're really paying attention and really understanding how what's going on in the movie. But luckily about this is there's a lot of attention to detail things that if you watch it twice, you'll see it the second time. You're like, oh wow, that's really cool. And one of the biggest things I found that this movie kind of got was inspired by was definitely the comic book A Long Halloween, which
Hmm.
a lot of things were from that. And then another comic was a Hush actually. So it was I like
Hmm.
how the Matt Reeves actually turned the script and made it reflect off of already brilliant comic books because at the end of the day, even though I find certain new material refreshing too, at the end of the day, I've always found if you're gonna adapt a comic to a movie, why not go exactly to the source material 100%? What made the character amazing in the first place is the comic. So why not use that story? I never understood why you want to be like, oh well, if let's do a Spider-Man movie, but instead of him shooting something out of his wrist, how about
Hmm.
he spits lasers out of his mouth? I'm like, well, no, then he's not Spider-Man anymore. What are you
Yeah.
doing? So and sometimes they do that, and luckily there was a lot of fans coming back on specific movies saying, if you keep on screwing up certain characters, then we're gonna get you.
Yeah.
And Marvel's done a pretty decent job in the last 15 years making characters that were pretty much written
Yeah.
from the comics. And DC has finally been somewhat not catching up because they have a while to go, but they've been doing a pretty decent job lately and saying, "Hey, we're coming back and we're coming back strong." So it's nice to
Hmm.
see that this movie being a DC property because DC is a very wonderful, mature kind of select crew. And the older I get, Tayson, I kind of like certain uh, older and more gritty and dark and like wow, that's not a happy ending kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And this is a perfect example of what I was kind of hoping. I was hoping that there'd be a madman who was actually killing people, like the Saw movies, and he's putting people
Hmm.
through these kind of little situations. And then watching it again, I see certain things. For example, at the very beginning, when the Riddler is about ready to kill the mayor, and he's in his car, there's a part when the mayor is wiping off the he has a foggy windshield, and it's because the Riddler was in the back seat the whole time, fogging up
Hmm.
the car. And I didn't, it's just like wow, what a great thing to kind of show that he's been in there for a while. And I like things that do that. No Country for Old Men does a little part that was brilliant where the cop goes in to try to find the guy that they're looking for, and he sees a glass of milk sitting on the thing, and the glass of milk, it's perspiring a little bit, and it's like it's dripping down water, and he goes, "Oh, they were just here." They were just here, and I know that because it's still sweating.
Yeah. Back to the comic book question. How do you think this like compared to the comics?
Well, first of all, the comics were a lot of the best comics were written in the '80s
Hmm.
with people like Alan Moore and Frank Miller. And Alan Moore wrote The Killing Joke, which is
Hmm.
also a fantastic comic. And like Frank Miller wrote Dark Knight Returns. And
Hmm.
these are it showed a mature representation of the Batman, because Batman beforehand was always the character was always represented more of like, oh, I'm just in the shadows and I'm doing all these things. But the '80s version kind of started throwing in characters that Joker would start like doing
Hmm.
really sadistic things. And it's whenever writing started becoming much more powerful in the comic book world, and that's whenever they're now taking that and they're using that concept for movies now, and it's what is working. And there's certain uh, comics that like you asked a minute ago, is it was it working with the comic? Like, yeah, it is working because it's portraying. And no, don't get me wrong, this is a different Batman, and
Hmm.
where all the Batmans we're used to, like there's like my Michael Keaton Batman, he was kind of he was just kind of a normal like a billionaire kind of like nerdy-ish kind of character, where like whenever he was playing Bruce Wayne, where Christian Bale was acting like a spoiled little brat, even though he wasn't. And you have a certain different thing. Robert Pattinson is just kind of still in that like I'm pissed off phase, and I'm just glad that they're not doing something else. I'm sorry. I'm glad that they're not doing the same thing as someone
Hmm.
already has done. They're trying something new, and it could have not worked. We saw that
Hmm.
with like Suicide Squad. I felt like the first
Yeah.
movie did not work, but then the second one they tried something
Mhm.
new, and that did work. Now the good thing
I
about
agree.
this first one, everything so far it's good. I love seeing John Turturro as Falcone. He's a great actor. I
Mhm.
like seeing Peter Sarsgaard play the district attorney, the guy who had the bomb attached to his face,
Oh yeah.
his neck. He's a very good actor, and that whole scene was very intense, and I was very conscious of my breathing. Was going, oh, Nick, calm down, because
Mhm.
just you could
Yeah.
the way everything was doing. That's a movie that can do that kind of stuff to you is a movie that's
Yeah.
working and successful, and I'm all for it.
Yeah. So going back to the Batman question, how do you think Robert Pattinson played Batman?
Yeah. Uh, this is the thing. A lot of people taste and have a gripe with Robert Pattinson anyways, and the only reason why they do is because they saw a movie called Twilight, and for
Hmm.
some weird reason they blamed him for that, even though
Hmm.
technically, even though I'm not a fan of the book was a huge success, the movies were a huge success, so I don't see what the problem is. His acting wasn't bad. The,
Hmm.
the script was bad. You watch Robert Pattinson in
Yeah.
any other movie, you see yourself a damn good actor. He can do very, very many things. Watch him in The
Yeah.
Lighthouse. Watch him in Remember Me. He's very good, very technical. And then whenever people said, "Oh, well, he's playing the Batman," and everyone was pissed, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking, okay, first of all, I know he's a good actor. Matt Reeves, the director, he's directed the Planet of the Apes remakes, and they were excellent.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I know that Michael Keaton, whenever he was chosen for the role in Batman in '89, people were pissed because they thought
Mhm.
Michael Keaton, he's a comedian. I know that when Heath Ledger was chosen for the Joker, people were pissed. I know that when Daniel Craig was chosen for James Bond, people were pissed, and all these people, funny enough, turned out to be possibly the best renditions of those characters. So it's
Mhm.
funny how you find out something. Then so Robert Pattinson was sadly cast this way, and people watch the
Mhm.
movie, and I do agree with you saying he kind of plays the same character, and that's because he is because actually he's still brooding, but the actor
Mhm.
Robert Pattinson, I thought did extremely well, especially when you see him in an interview and he's very posh and he's very like, oh, hello, and you're like, oh well,
Yeah.
you're not this like
Yeah, he really
it's
inspires into. Oh.
he's great. I mean, and of course, your mom is a big, and my wife and me, and
Mhm.
we're a big fan of him and Harry Potter. He plays Cedric, and
Yep.
so it's one of those things
Mhm.
that he's done a lot of awesome things, and Batman was great, and I have no real complaints. I think the only complaint I have, well, I have a couple complaints, but one complaint was I'm not sure, and I liked it by the way. I did like it, but I'm not sure if they should have automatically already introduced the Joker. What do you think?
Kind of. It left like a cool. I mean, every movie is doing this nowadays, really. It kind of left a cool sequence. So I'm excited to see what they do in further movies. It's definitely a non-unique way to do it, but it was still pretty cool. What do you think about it?
Oh, I mean, I liked it. I liked Paul Dano, and I forget the actor's name who plays the Joker, but I think what really sold me was not even the movie itself, was the deleted scene of the Batman talking to the Joker. Did you see that?
Rainy makes you look soft.
You're wasting my time.
Yeah.
Okay, and I thought that that was a much better usage of it. I think that they should have left that into the movie anyways because it opens
Hmm.
up with the Joker saying, "Oh, it's our 1 year anniversary," implying that he put him there a year ago almost. And I thought that was kind of a cool way to put him in there, to kind of saying that, oh, Joker was already a threat, but eventually he'll become a big threat, and that's from the Riddler. And so I thought that the acting was very good from, I think his name is
Yeah.
Barry, the actor, and he's an Irish guy. I know he was in the Eternals. He's one of the gods in it, Eternal guy,
Hmm.
and I don't really know him from too much. He's in the Dunkirk movie. He was excellent in that, but I don't know much about him, so I was a little nervous whenever he played the part. But when I saw the deleted scenes, I thought, well, that should have been kept in the movie, and I thought that was a very unique way to kind of, it was more of like a Hannibal Lecter, Silence of the Lambs kind of way of introducing the Joker's character, which would kind of make a lot of
Yeah.
sense too. So I thought it was just a good way of doing that,
Mhm.
and it
Yeah.
kind of showed a little bit more of his acting skills, the actor himself, and because that's a very tough road to follow. I mean, only the best has played Joker correctly. Even some of the best haven't. Like Jared Leto's a good actor, but he did not play the Joker very well in Suicide Squad, and that's probably the direction, not his fault, but it still wasn't a very good Joker.
Yeah. So I have a question.
Talk to me, Goose.
I've kind of talked to you about this like off screen, but how come like this isn't tied in with the Joker?
Yeah, because I was curious if it's going to be because the Joker movie
Mhm.
was in. Oh,
It looks like
one second, one second.
bless you, bless you.
Yeah, thanks, bud. The Joker movie,
Yeah.
the one that Joaquin Phoenix did, played brilliantly, by the way, and
Mhm.
that one was around early '80s when it was supposed to be done. This movie, you could tell it was more
Mhm.
modern because
Mhm.
uh, Catwoman's mom died in 2003 on the tombstone. So that tells, or something like that, 2007 or something, 2003. So it tells me that it for sure is not that long ago,
Mhm.
and so I don't think it's part of the same world because Joker is now, that kind of proves Joker is this 25-year-old person now, where that Walking Phoenix version, if it was part of this world, would probably be in his 50s or 60s.
Hmm. Well, it just didn't really make sense because you see all I guess like the people that are trying to be like him, like oh, when like the first opening scene when they're just getting off the bus, they have like the exact same face paint and stuff as the first movie. So that or the Joker. So that's why I was kind of confused.
Okay, yeah, I think I was watching a little thing, and some people automatically assume that that was the Joker's people, but I found out it was just another rival, I guess, like a gang. It was, and they had the
Oh,
whole. I like the whole half face, by the way, where the kid was kind of an initiation, and
yeah,
he had
yeah.
to do that deed to that person, that man, to be able to get the full pays, and that's whenever you see the excellent way of introducing Batman, where they
Yeah.
are looking down this. It's a widescreen, uh, and you look down this long like tunnel thing, and they can hear you can hear the
Hmm.
music going boom boom, and you can hear the footsteps. You don't see anything, but you just
Hmm.
hear the
Yeah.
footsteps. I thought, what a
Right.
cool
Yeah.
way to introduce the main character, the Batman. And I think I could tell pretty much from once I saw that part. I was like, okay, I I can already tell that they at least are going to be doing some justice to this movie. And
Yeah.
yeah, and luckily it was everything I kind of hoped it would be. The Penguin was great. All the supporting characters in the movie were great. I had no real issue with anyone. Like I had no issue with acting. I thought that there were a
Hmm.
lot of good parts of building tension. Like for example, when they're in the funeral, and they can hear like from the outside of the funeral, like
Oh, yeah.
noises and stuff. And they're all just
Yeah.
like they're just sitting in there like, and they're all
Hmm.
cute. And I
Yeah.
just love the way that it's
Yeah. That
building
was
that
really cool
tension.
too.
Yeah, and just stuff like that is kind of it was kind of proof that the director at least knows what
Mhm.
he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the funeral was very cool. Just him walking in, getting like recognized and stuff, as Bruce Wayne. And yeah, the way they ended the scene was I thought so cool.
Yes, sir. I agree. I feel like the there's something that Christopher Nolan does with his movies. I don't want to say yet, but he might go down as being the best. So it's hard to I hate comparing Matt Reeves the Batman with Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight trilogy, and Christopher Nolan started Batman Begins after, and the last movie before that was uh, uh, Batman and Robin, which was considered to
Hmm.
be the worst Batman movie of all time, and
Huh.
it was pretty bad, and a lot of people were just afraid to touch the Batman, but Christopher Nolan came in and completely changed it, and I feel like regardless of what happens now, everyone is able to look at the Christopher Nolan version and go, okay, well, this is kind of the standard in some degree, and
Hmm.
I always have to put out that Christopher Nolan kind of did it right the first time, and and and
Hmm.
and I would argue that Tim Burton also did it right the first time too. The second movie, Batman Returns, kind of went a little bit. Even though I personally extremely like Batman Returns, I personally love that Catwoman the best. The Michelle Pfeiffer version is easily my favorite, just because first of all, Michelle Pfeiffer, and second of all, the idea that how she actually had 9 lives, and she was very like
Hmm.
cat-like. I thought it was just a very unique thing. Tim Burton did that very well. But yeah, Batman
Hmm.
Returns kind of started kind of getting all weird and whatnot, and Tim Burton kind of lost a little bit of what made the first one so interesting. And
Hmm.
luckily, Matt Reeves was able to after it's been done already now many times. Matt Reeves still makes a refreshing take on the Batman, and I'm excited to see what he does next.
Yeah. So, I have a question. How do you think Robin is gonna play a part in like next movie? Because I thought it was really cool because it kind of seemed like Bruce Wayne, kind of like already knew him really.
Oh, that little
So I thought that
that
was
kid he was looking at, pretty much.
yeah,
That,
a little kid. Yeah. So I thought
yeah,
that was
yeah.
really cool.
A
So
lot
what
of
are your thoughts on it?
well, Tayson, a lot of people are saying that same thing, that that kid he saved twice in the
Hmm.
movie actually, because he saved the kid twice, saved him at the funeral, and then he saved again
Yeah.
the water thing and everything. But a lot of people were saying that could be Robin. Now, the only thing is that means that they'd be changing Robin's story a little bit because Robin's situation happens when at a carnival when his parents are killed while
Yeah.
they're all doing their carnival thing. So I get nervous
Hmm.
whenever people switch things up, and especially like I said, like I just gave you a little rant, which is this whole thing. I'm sure everyone's watching is going like, well, that's all you do is rant. But I was saying a little while ago how you do not take stuff away from the comics that is going to screw up what makes the character interesting in the first place. Yes, you can change minor details. Like you could say, oh, well, instead of Bruce Wayne's mom and dad being killed outside of the theater, they could be killed at
Yeah.
another place, and this place has certain relevance. But I don't want you to say,
Yeah.
oh, well, Batman now. We're just gonna have one horn come out instead of two because we're just tired of the two. I mean, I leave it alone.
Yeah.
I don't want them to change like the story of what made Batman interesting in the first place. But just yeah, just tweak it a little bit and make it your own. That's fine. And Matt Reeves did a good job of that.
Yeah. So, who do you think it could be then? The kid.
I don't think it's anyone. I just think what happened was
Hmm.
personally. I just think that what happened was he saw a kid who just saw his dad get killed and pretty much right in front of him, and he's now orphan, not right in front of him, but his dad was
Hmm.
murdered, and now he's kind of like an orphan. And he kind of, I think, he was just kind of thinking of metaphors of parallels of like his life to his own to the kid. So I think he felt like he was
Hmm.
saving himself whenever he was
Hmm.
saving the kid. But and they might turn that into a Robin thing. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
I'm not. I think it
That'd
was
be
just
interesting.
more of just a yeah, and that's what they might do. But I felt like it was just more of just a way of letting you know that Bruce Wayne is kind of still crippled, and the young man we see is still hurt. But by the end of that movie, the monologue he kind of was saying like I'm starting to understand more of what the kind of person, like the kind of symbol they expect me to be, and you'll probably start seeing a little more flashy Batman, a little more flashy Bruce Wayne, where he's walking around. He's probably gonna have some friends and have a little more of a like, oh, I am back and I'm here to I'm not sure exactly what kind of person he'll be, but I think a lot of people's gripe was that he just kind of like hung the shadows and stuff, and I think the reason they did it on purpose is because they wanted to say that he was still broken.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. How do you think Catwoman's gonna be in the second Batman?
No, I don't think she will. She said she was going to Budhaven, which is a place where, funny enough, Nightwing is from. So I don't know if they were trying to set up that, but I think that they were just saying that she was pretty much implying like you're not, like she said, like you belong to someone else, aka Gotham City, and
Yeah.
this place is not going to be changing, and I'm not going to stay around for it, implying that that he's going to be staying and she's not. So we might see her again
Mhm.
maybe in the third one, but we're definitely not going to see her in the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another good point. I think after the second one, I think Gotham's gonna come to like a whole like it's not gonna be a new city. I think they're gonna have to rebuild a new city. That's just what I kind of feel like. I thought they were gonna do that in this movie when they're destroying everything. But that's just what I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure like if they're gonna do a 5 years later thing. It's gonna be already be built again. I would prefer that they
Yeah.
didn't do that. I prefer maybe it was like maybe a year or 2 years, and they were still in the process, and kind of the damage is still kind of there. Because like I said, I like the whole
Mhm.
aesthetic that the city was given. It was a very the city had its own life in itself. I felt like the city was actually dangerous. One flaw that I would
Uh,
say about
yeah.
the Dark Knight trilogy was the city did not feel like Gotham City. It did not. I didn't like
Yeah.
Arkham Asylum and all that. It didn't. It felt like they were just filming Chicago or New York City. But this movie actually
Hmm.
feels very like it's a city of its own that has so much crime that's actually changed the whole like concept. That's why like Batman's so pissy. That's why all these people. That's why the Riddler's so mad because this city is so corrupt and it's actually showing, and people are pissed. That's why all those fake Riddlers came out at the end because they're like they're liking the cause because they're like they're also probably believing the same thing. Like we're all these poor suffering people because all these bad guys are taking advantage of that $1 billion refund or whatever it was thing that Thomas Wayne was that referral thing that and they all took advantage of it and they started screwing everyone else over. And so Riddler had the right idea in some degree. Just he was killing people. He instead of trying to just take people down, he was trying to kill the problem. Which and some people watching the movie probably felt like Riddler was the true hero of the movie, and that's what makes a good movie too. Is like, hey, I get what they're doing, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you think the second movie, like based off of the evidence that we have, how do you think the second movie's gonna play, in Gotham? Because it's just I don't really know where they could further go with this.
Well, like you said a minute ago, I mean, there's probably going to be some rebuilding going on, and I'm guessing there's going to
Hmm.
be there's going to be somewhat of a less reluctance from the cops treating Batman like crap. They're probably going to be nicer to him a little bit because they realize that he's on their same side. I'm guessing the citizens are going to be realizing that there might be a little bit of that, but then the problem and I'm not sure if they're going to be using these guys next. I would if I personally do not want to see the Riddler and the Joker in the next movie. I would rather see them in the third movie or something like that to end it because they kind of got put in jail. Now give us some I want to see Mr. Freeze and I want to see Mr. Freeze done correctly. We've only had Arnold Schwarzenegger play him, and even though I love me some Arnold Schwarzenegger, not for this. That was the Batman and Robin movie, and it was garbage, and it was a stupid silliness. They also had Bane in there, which was really silly and goofy too. And look what they did with Bane in the Dark Knight trilogy. He was intimidating, a
Yeah.
wonderful villain who was very interesting, and maybe in some degree even at same level as the Joker interesting. Just sadly,
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
Joker was so good that people forget that everyone else was good too.
Yeah. 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 Bane. Bane. Bane was really a surprise to that movie.
Tom
Yeah.
Hardy. I mean, Tom
Yeah.
Hardy's a big deal, and I can never give him much praise. Like Christopher Nolan is the real reason. He and his brother Jonathan Nolan are also writers, and they understand certain things that you can and can't like leave out of things. So they really crafted it very well and turned a very possibly a silly idea into a very sophisticated drama, and then that's how they made Batman, and that's how people like Matt Reeves is able to make something like this now. Is he takes stuff like that and he takes stuff that like David Fincher has put out. I always have to bring David Fincher up because he's the man at showing these kind of movies too. That was almost verbatim to some degree the exact same level of craftsmanship that you see the Riddler doing was what you were seeing in a David Fincher movie. So um, yeah, in closing, Tayson, there's a lot of things that this movie did very good. So regardless of some of the small things I'm not necessarily a fan of, I'm a big fan of the music, of the acting, of the writing, of the directing, of the feel of the movie, and I am excited to see who is playing in the next movie. And that's always a good thing when you're like, okay, cool, just give me more, give me
Oh
more.
yeah. 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 I'm very excited to see where they go. I don't really feel like they have a lot of room to make stuff out of it, really, because I felt like even in this movie they kind of like didn't really incorporate a lot of stuff to it. Um, so yeah, I'm excited to see what they do. Definitely kind of expecting it to be not as good as the Batman, the new one. But yeah.
Well, yeah, but at the end of the day, I'm glad that we both got to talk about the Batman, and I feel like this movie needed to be talked about. Yeah, I just did the Dark Knight trilogy a couple weeks ago, and it was really fun that I get to revisit this all again and talk about all the Batman movies again. I love the Batman franchise, and I'm glad that Matt Reeves did this. Even though I was nervous at first because I mean people keep on redoing Batman. Luckily, it's still working. Ben Affleck version, I think that he did fine himself. I don't. I mean, but I'm not a fan of how like he kind of was silly at times. I don't really like my Batman being too silly. But at the end of the day, I'm glad that they're headed in this direction, and I can't wait to see more. And Tayson, my wonderful nephew, thank you for coming on the show with me. Appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Nick, for having me. This has been so much fun.
I'm glad to hear it, bud. Start thinking of the next topic very soon, and let me know what you want to do. Okay, bud. All right. Well, everyone, take care, and I'll see you guys next time.